The first and most important right you have as a federal employee is the right to be represented by the union during an investigatory interview. This is also known as the Weingarten Right, and it applies to you regardless of whether you're a dues-paying member of the union or not. In the same way that it's always important to have a lawyer present whenever you're being questioned by law enforcement, it's equally as important to make sure you have a union representative present anytime you're being questioned by someone in your National Guard chain of command. If you find yourself involved in an investigation, regardless of whether you're a target or just a witness, we highly recommend you invoke your Weingarten Right before you answer any questions. Now, in order for you to invoke your Weingarten Right, you must meet 4 specific requirements. Requirement number 1, you have to be called into a meeting with a representative of the National Guard. Now, that could include anyone in your supervisory chain. It could also include someone from the Inspector General's office. It could also be a representative from the military police or the provost for those of you on Army installations, or it could be OSI or security forces for those of you on Air Force installations. Your right also extends to investigations conducted by local law enforcement if the investigation is being done at the request of the National Guard. Now, if you're not sure, you should always err on the side of caution and assume that the person you're speaking with is there on behalf or at the request of the National Guard. Requirement number 2, the meeting that you're called into has to be investigatory in nature. Now, the National Guard is under no requirement to tell you that you're under investigation, and sometimes it may not be plainly obvious that you're being asked questions as part of an investigation. However, if you're in a meeting with a supervisor or another representative from the National Guard and you're being asked questions, then you should probably assume that you're part of an investigation. Requirement number 3, you have to have a reasonable fear or belief that the interview could lead to disciplinary action. If you're the subject of the investigation, then you're probably going to have a reasonable belief or fear of discipline. However, even if you're just a witness, you may still have a reasonable fear of discipline depending on your potential involvement. The most important thing to remember here is that you make the call as to whether you have a fear of discipline or not. The National Guard cannot decide for you whether your belief is reasonable. And finally, requirement number 4, you must make a clear request or statement that you are invoking your Weingarten Right. It could be as simple as saying, I want a union rep. Anything less than that is not going to suffice. Now, we recommend that your statement be something along the lines of the following. I want to cooperate, but I have reason to believe that this investigatory interview may lead to disciplinary action against me. Therefore, in accordance with my rights under federal law, I respectfully request that this interview not begin until 1, my union rep is present, and 2, I'm advised of the subject and purpose of this interview, and 3, I've had an opportunity to consult with my union rep in private. Now, I know that's a lot to remember, but don't worry. The packet you're receiving today includes my business card along with the business card of your state representative. Flip one of those cards over and you're going to find a copy of this statement. Now, once you invoke your Weingarten Right, the National Guard has to do one of 3 things. 1, they can stop questioning you until a union representative is present at the meeting. 2, they can cancel the interview and complete the investigation without your statement. Or 3, they can inform you that they're going to call off the interview unless you voluntarily agree to waive your Weingarten Right. We highly advise you never to accept option 3. Now, once you make a request for representation, the union gets to decide who your designated representative will be. And while we prefer that a representative be physically present in the room with you, sometimes the representative may only be able to attend via telephone. The National Guard is legally required to inform you of your Weingarten Right, and today we're helping them by doing just that. Federal law also requires that the National Guard inform you of your right annually. That's usually done via email or via letter sent to your home of record. In some states, we also have a requirement in the union contract that the National Guard inform you of your right immediately prior to being questioned during an investigation. Now, regardless of who conducts the interview or whether a union representative is physically present or on the phone, the most important thing to remember is that even though you have a right to be represented, in order for you to exercise that right, you have to invoke it. No one ever wants to be in this situation. However, if you do find yourself in this situation, we highly encourage that you exercise your Weingarten Right.